Coming up, Arizona State University commits to support Indigenous and tribal communities with new leadership. We are catching up with the star of Dark Winds ahead of its upcoming season, and a six-time boxing world champion talks to us about her new role as an actress. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amarawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start today in Phoenix, Arizona, where Navajo police have begun a citywide search for citizens who were tricked by a healthcare scam. A team of Navajo police officers are looking for Indigenous people impacted by fraudulent rehabilitation facilities. A loophole in the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System's American Indian Health Program allowed natives to become targets. Scammers posed as providers for behavioral health care and allegedly billed the state for services that were never provided. AHCCCS has launched a special 211 hotline that will help the thousands of natives left without a place to stay and no way to go home. Navajo officer Derek Benally says since the search began in May, hearing the experiences of the people directly impacted has been a real eye-opener. Because of the search, the Navajo Nation Police Department was able to update its missing persons database. The NNPD now reports that 23 women and 58 men from the Navajo Nation are currently missing. Moving to New Mexico, a Native American family is in mourning after the loss of their relative. In late June, San Felipe Pueblo citizen Michael Tenorio and his wife were hoping to catch a movie at an Albuquerque theater. Witnesses told police that 19-year-old Enrique Padilla and his girlfriend found the couple in one of their reserved seats. It was a confrontation over the seat assignments that allegedly caused an argument to break out. Padilla allegedly shot Tenorio in the chest and then fled the scene. He was later found by police hiding in a bush outside with a gunshot wound. Detectives say an off-duty police officer tried to administer aid to the 52-year-old Army veteran, but Tenorio died at the scene. Padilla has been charged with homicide, shooting at an unoccupied building, and tampering with evidence. Tenorio is the brother of New Mexico State Representative Charlotte Little. In a statement, the family says Tenorio was laid to rest following traditional funeral practices and that their loved one was lost due to senseless violence. Well, accessing healthcare and essential services just got a little easier for Indigenous veterans. The Indian Health Service and the Department of Veterans Affairs have launched a new interactive map tool for veterans to find health and support services ranging from dental care to substance abuse treatment. It hosts location data from over 40 urban Indian organizations and 1,500 VA healthcare facilities across the country. The tool is located on the IHS website and is part of the Native American Veteran Homelessness Initiative that began earlier this year. Native Americans have served in the U.S. military at higher rates than any other group in the nation's history. Unfortunately, they often face higher disparities when transitioning back to civilian life, which is why officials say connecting Native veterans to services they have earned is important. Doors are opening for a stand-up comedian and actress. Navajo citizen Alex Slim is one of 3 who won a scholarship for Saturday Night Live out of thousands of applicants. The scholarship covers 3 classes at the Groundlings in Los Angeles, California, one-on-one coaching sessions with teachers, and the chance to audition to actually be on SNL. Slim shared her reaction to the accomplishment with ICT.
I was so happy. Oh my, I couldn't believe it. My jaw dropped to the floor. I was like jumping up and down. It was summertime, so if I wasn't already sweating, I was sweating more. Like, it was so crazy. I remember reading the email and I was like, what? I can't believe this. And I couldn't help but share the news with my family right away. Like, just maybe 3 seconds after reading the email, I ran into my living room and showed my entire family. I was so happy.
Slim started pursuing comedy at 17 years old by taking classes in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She says one day she wants her own show and to create better representation for Native people and trans women. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Today's in-studio guest is no stranger to Arizona State University, but his new job is. Jacob Moore has been announced as the new Vice President and Special Advisor to the President on American Indian Affairs. His goal is to expand ASU's initiatives to better support Indigenous communities. Moore was formerly the Associate Vice President of Tribal Relations in the Office of Government and Community Affairs at ASU. Mr. Moore, hello to you and congratulations.
Thank you. It's good day.
I'd like to start off because this position that you're in formerly had a late tribal leader in it. That was Peterson Zahn. How has his legacy impacted the work that you do today?
You know, it has a lot to do with really setting the foundation in terms of the kind of programming, the focus that Arizona State has, not just to American Indian students, but to centers and educational programs. For me, it's also very special in the sense that my father, Josiah Moore, in the O'odham language we would say Josiah Bott, since he passed, both were fellow classmates in probably about 1963, 1964. They both attended the Center for Indian Education to get their degrees in education. My father got his degree in education with a minor in Indian Ed, so Peterson Zahn, Vernon Massa Yesva, and a handful of what became tribal leaders really started their education at ASU in the early 60s.
There are a number of Indigenous students who attend school at Arizona State University. What are the greatest needs for these Indigenous scholars in order to get their degree and then, of course, advance to be successful after?
So I'm fortunate in terms of, taking on this role and following, some very illustrious leaders. Dr. Zahn, Peterson Zahn, was here for probably 12 to 15 years. Diane Hemitua, former U.S. attorney and now federal district court judge, and then Dr. Brayboy. Dr. Brayboy was the director for Center for Indian Ed, and his research talked about 4 particular areas. One is the academic preparation. The second is financial assistance. Next would be cultural congruency or incongruency in terms of the culture shock that Native students feel when they come to a large campus like Arizona State. And then the fourth is let me see, there's financial aid, there's also role models and mentors. And we've added another one to that list, which is really health and wellness. We know that having our students really be healthy and ensure that we're taking care of their well-being is that we're coming out of a difficult period in terms of the pandemic, and there's still significant grief in our communities, and our students bring that with them as well.
I could imagine. I want to talk about the current initiatives that serve Indigenous students. Tell us about some of the greatest successes that you're seeing right now.
I would say the greatest one for me that we're most proud of is the number of graduates that we have that are coming out of the university. We have fall graduations, we have graduations in spring, and we had over 300 in the fall and about 400 in the spring, so that's 700 Native students coming out with bachelor's, master's, PhD, law school degrees, perhaps one of the highest producing universities when it comes to Native completing their degree. The other is a high number of Indigenous faculty, over 60 throughout the university, everything from the fine arts to architecture to law to social work, and so it's just really a fun place to be.
I'd love to give you the moment to reflect on yourself and your identity. You mentioned earlier that your father seems as someone that you've taken a lot of strength from. In your position, what does it mean to be an O'odham person and being in this very powerful position to help Native students?
I guess again, I also want to recognize not just Josiah Bott, but all of the leaders that came before, because I knew them, and I learned from them. And I think one of the lessons was that this idea that these institutions of higher ed have a responsibility for the economic stability, the well-being, the continuation of the culture and language with our tribal nations and communities, just as they do for other stakeholders, whether it's microchip makers or construction. And so it's a recognition that our tribal nations and communities are very much one of those stakeholders that the university has a responsibility to support. And being in a position where I can help advance that is quite an honor.
You very recently took this position. So if we were looking a year from now, what goals do you hope that you've achieved by then?
I would say, in the short term is to ensure that we are listening, that we understand what the priorities of tribal nations and communities are and how does the university fit in versus the other way around. And also, I think, obviously, an increase in enrollment, but more importantly, retention and moving toward graduation so that, one, we get them in, we get them out with a degree that has real value in a timely manner. So.
We know that we just finished graduation season for Native American students all across the country. If there was a high school student who was maybe thinking, hey, ASU is somewhere that I would maybe consider, what would be your message to them?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options, for students to consider, but regardless of where they decide to go, I think just thinking early, even in junior high and high school about preparing for this idea that college is a viable option for them and that they can come to any of our campuses in education and social work and law and engineering, but also this idea that they can attend online as well. We're seeing a significant increase in online students, in part because we're really, expecting them to, in regular classes, have them, come out of their own communities, and perhaps they can stay within their own communities and be, contribute back into their community, but also continue their education as well. So there's all kinds of opportunities for young people to really take a hard look, and they should start looking now.
Well, Jacob Moore, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. AMC's Dark Winds has a new season premiering on July 30th. The show is filled with Indigenous talent in front and behind the screen. ICT's Paris Wise has this interview with the series lead, Zahn McClarnon.
Dark Winds, like last year, is a mystery crime show, which is set on the Navajo reservation about Joe Lee Porn. It's based on Tony Hillerman books with Joe Lee Porn, who I play, and Kiowa Gordon is Jim Chi, Jessica Matten as Bernadette, and Deanna Ellison, who plays my wife. And we've got a ton of actors this year on the show. We've got quite a list of Navajo actors as well on the show. We've got some great guest stars, and the overview is basically about Joe Lee Porn finds some evidence regarding his child that he had lost in the previous season, and he pursues that evidence to find out what happened to him. Trying not to do any spoiler alerts,
You mentioned you're returning with the other series leads such as Kiowa Gordon and Jessica Matten. How will we see the relationships between these characters progress?
I think there's a bit more levity this year with the show. We're trying to bring a little bit more of the what it's really like on the res and the humor within our cultures and the relationships, the teasing between people. So there's more levity within the show and with these characters. So difficult not to spoil the show to tell you, exactly what has happened. But I think you'll, bottom line is you'll see more levity.
How have the relationships between you as actors also progressed now that you've been able to work together again?
Well, I've known Jessica and Kiowa we've worked together in the past we did a show together called Frontier, Jason Momoa, and I worked with Kiowa on a Sundance series as well. So I've known those guys for quite a while, and we've all become close friends, and we stay in contact when we're not working as well. Keep in touch, and I've grown to care deeply for my wife, who is Deanna Allison, who is a Navajo actress from. She grew up in, I believe, Albuquerque, or I think she grew up in the Navajo Res, but she lives in Albuquerque now. So gotten very close to all my castmates over the past couple of seasons. Just like every show you're on, you get close to the people you work with, and you develop relationships.
Well, speaking of, I have to bring up your character, Officer Big in Reservation Dogs, who will be making his last appearance in the show's series finale. What would you say that character taught you, and how will you look back at this time being able to take part in that show?
I think Reservation Dogs, as well as Dark Winds, has broken down a few doors, cracked that door open a little bit more for Native representation, and not just for actors, but people behind the scenes, crew, producers, writers, directors. We've on both shows we've established some new talent. This year on Dark Winds, we have Billy Luther, who is Navajo, who is doing an episode, directing an episode, and he also wrote an episode. So I think both shows have broken down some of those, or just not broken them down, but cracked open those doors for other talent to pursue working in television and film.
Funnily enough, both of these characters that you play are officers. We can see some of the differences between them, but can you tell us? Just
Big is pretty goofy conspiracy, and Joe Leaphorn's kind of an intense kind of character. But
absolutely. Would you say there are any similarities though that you brought out in each role? Or
yeah, they're res cops. That's about it. The only similarity I can see.
Well, what has it been like playing a more serious role, and will there be new sides to Joe Leaphorn that viewers will see from this character in this season?
I think this season, again, I mentioned Joe finds some evidence regarding his child. I think that this season, Leaphorn's moral code is questioned, is challenged, his morality, and what he does with that evidence and the situations he finds himself in. I think he has a lot of different choices to make in this season, and I think people in general can relate to those kind of characters, because we all have to go through that within our lifetimes, within our lives, that we have many choices and many roads to take, and which ones do we do? And he comes up against that quite a bit in this season. Also, what that means for his relationships to his co-workers, and with Jim Chi and Bernadette, and what that means to his relationship with his wife and his community.
How did you, as an actor preparing for this role, prepare for all of that?
Just a lot. Just know the story, know the character, know your dialogue, obviously, and just prep as much as you possibly can, and show up prepared, and be open-minded to things that can change within scenes, with the other actors, with listening, and just being exploring these characters, and remaining open, remaining teachable within the characters. I think is very important, but mainly just be prepared. Prep work is very important.
Yeah.
Show up and be professional.
With your career, spanning over 30 years, did you ever see yourself doing the work that you're doing now?
Well, I'd hope to. I think that every actor hopes that they can work consistently and make a living as an actor. I pinch myself once in a while. I do. I feel very, very fortunate to be in this time period of representation for Native peoples. I'm extremely fortunate to be here and doing what I'm doing.
Well, looking back at when roles and shows like this weren't exactly around, what made you want to stick through it through the ebbs and flows?
I just love acting. I love the craft of acting. I love going to class and studying and becoming, refining that craft and being the best possible actor that I could be. I enjoyed for a long time, I enjoyed the grind of it. I enjoyed going to auditions and being in Los Angeles and pursuing something that I wanted to do. I had goals, and I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of those goals.
Well, Zahn McClarnon, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Paris. I appreciate you allowing me to join you.
Six-time world champion boxer Kaylee Reese has taken over the ring and now the screen. She had a role in the True Detective series and has an upcoming role in Wind River: The Next Chapter. Kaylee joins me now virtually to talk about this and her other projects. Hi there, and congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you to Butney. It's really nice. Thank you for having me here.
I want to start off with boxing. You are actually the first Indigenous woman fighter to become a world champion. What first drew you to the sport?
I've always been really sporty as a kid. I'm one of 5 children. I'm the baby, and both of my brothers were big basketball heads growing up, so they hooped all the time. I wanted to be sporty just like them. Nobody in my family boxed, but just the solo aspect of boxing actually really intrigued me. It really kind of brought me in as kind of that the lineage of where I even come from the Wampanoag Nation. I come from a great war chief named Anawan. He was a war chief to our great Osamequin chief, and just that warrior blood runs through my veins, and just the sense of having that if you don't do something, it's on you, that self-accountability really intrigued me and attracted me to the sport. And fighting out in the streets with the boys kind of helped a little bit. But I just really like that solo aspect and really that self-accountability of boxing.
We know that boxing carries so many life lessons in the sport. What lessons have you brought from boxing into your personal life and now, of course, delving into acting?
Like I said, boxing has taught me such self-accountability, and discipline is a huge, huge thing. I really encourage, especially the younger folks coming up, even no matter what age you are, it's just, that discipline, that repetition, that you always can learn something. There's no cap, there's no ceiling, and you just have that wonder. And I kind of bring that same sense of wonder and learning into this newfound career of storytelling in front of the screen. It's a lot of repetition. You have to be in the moment. You can't worry about the last take or the last round or what's going to happen. You kind of really have to be in the moment with the other opponent or the other actors. So there's a lot of parallels between acting, boxing, and life. It's just taught me so much, and it's can't wait to see what else it teaches me.
I want to talk more about acting now. What made you first want to pursue this career, and how has the journey been so far?
I've heard this quote before not too long ago. I hope what you can't dream happens to you. I could never have dreamt or planned this for myself. I've always been such an artist in a sense, especially with boxing. I call boxing an art, or painting, or creating something. I just like to be creative, and natural storytelling is something that we've done in my family all the time. My grandmother was an actor. My mom used to have me in little plays, and just having that expression of telling a story or being somebody else has just been something I've always been interested in. And oddly enough, a week prior to my first contact about being in the first movie, I put it out to the universe, like, if this is meant for me, it will find me. And it did. And I could have never planned on where I am now. I'm very blessed to have these opportunities, especially in boxing and acting. And I just always strive to do the best I can, educate myself, and just surround myself with people that are really good at their craft.
You were in True Detective, and of course we'll be seeing you very soon in Wind River: The Next Chapter. Both of the storylines have very real issues in Indian country, particularly the MMIR crisis. What is it like to actually play a part in the storyline of making that of that being a reality for so many Indigenous families?
It's one of those things I've noticed that it was a cathartic process, but I have the capacity to hold that space and be able to tell that story. It's not an easy story to tell, especially when it's so close to home for so many, such as myself as well, not as close as others, but it's one of those things when you get the call, you answer the call. If I have a gift or if I have a talent or if I have something to give to bring awareness or to tell a story and I'm capable to do it, then I'm just gonna do it. That's how I was raised. So it's a heavy subject, but you have to be the voice for the voiceless, and these silenced people that we've lost and that are missing, and there's so many families still suffering. If I have a way to bring a voice to the voiceless or some kind of awareness, I'm gonna do it.
I have one last very quick question. I mentioned we'll see you on the screen very soon, but will we see you in the ring at any time in the future?
Whatever the creator has planned for me, yes, you will. I haven't hung up the gloves yet, so we're just trying to see what makes sense and what falls into place. So you'll definitely see me in that squared circle again.
Well, Kaylee Reese, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tabutni.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.